I wasn't supposed to still be in that class. Technically, I'd already passed the course last semester. But something about the way she spoke, measured, unhurried, always letting silence fill the corners, made me sign up again as an elective. That's what I told myself, anyway. Her name was Professor Vale. Early 40s, maybe mid. She dressed like she didn't need anyone to notice her to be noticed. Sleeves always rolled up, hair in a quiet bun that somehow made her seem untouchable. The first day of spring term, I came in early, half out of habit, half out of not wanting to go home yet. The classroom smelled faintly of chalk and rain on coats. I was scrolling through my phone, pretending to be busy, when she walked in carrying her coffee thermos and a stack of essays. "You're early," she said. "I'm bad at timing," I replied, realizing too late that it sounded like I was apologizing for existing. She smiled, the kind that barely lifts the mouth but shifts something behind the eyes. "Then maybe you'll learn to wait better than most." That was her humor, dry, understated, almost kind. She set her coffee on the edge of my desk. Not beside it, on it. I remember staring at the ring of condensation forming around the base, the warmth of her hand still ghosting the surface. I didn't say anything. She didn't move it. The next few weeks followed the same quiet rhythm. She'd walk in early. I'd already be there. She'd comment on the weather. I'd pretend to care about the assignment. Sometimes she'd ask what I was writing, and I'd mumble something about fiction. "Fiction," she once said, sitting sideways on my desk, her coffee in hand. "You can tell the truth through lies. That's the only reason to write it." I nodded, though I wasn't sure if she was talking about writing or about us. One afternoon, the sky broke open right before class. Rain hit the window panes like a metronome. I'd forgotten my umbrella. She noticed before I did. "You'll get soaked walking home," she said, without looking up from her papers. "I don't mind." Liar. Her voice softened on that word. A teasing hum, almost fond. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded umbrella, the kind you'd expect someone practical to carry. "Take it. I can bring it back next class." I know. That was the first time I saw her hesitate. Her hand lingered halfway between us, as if waiting to see whether I'd actually take it. When I finally did, my fingers brushed against hers, barely, but enough. Nights after that stretched longer. I'd check my phone before sleeping, even though I knew she'd never text. I'd open the blank message window anyway, type out a question about the assignment, then delete it. Every time, my thumb hovered too long over send. It wasn't romance. Not yet. Just a quiet recognition that something in me leaned toward her, the way plants tilt toward the light without meaning to. The last week before midterms, she dismissed class early. I was the last one out, as usual. She stayed seated at her desk, tapping her pen absently against the notebook. "Do you ever write about real people?" she asked. "Sometimes." "Then be careful." "Why?" She looked up. The corners of her mouth curved in that restrained half-smile again. "Because the truth gets lonely when no one admits it." When I got home that evening, the umbrella she'd lent me was still dripping near the door. My phone buzzed once, an unknown number. A single line. "Next week, after class, stay a bit longer." I stared at it until the screen dimmed, half afraid, half sure I already knew whose number it was. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't delete the message. I stayed after class the next week, just like her message said. Most of the other students filed out quickly, the scraping of chairs echoing down the hallway. She didn't look up as I lingered by the doorway. For a second, I thought maybe the text had been a mistake, or worse, a test. Then she said, without glancing up, "Close the door, will you? The draft's terrible." Her voice was calm, but something in it felt different, lower, almost deliberate. I did as she asked. The click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. She was perched on the edge of her desk again, papers scattered around her like a halo of things undone. "You've been writing more," she said, nodding at the notebook I always carried. "Trying to. Good." A pause. "You have an ear for quiet moments. Most people rush past them." I wanted to tell her that I paid attention to quiet moments because of her, because she made silence feel like a language, but I only said, "Thanks." She smiled slightly, then gestured to the seat across from her. "Sit." I did. The distance between us was maybe 3 feet. It felt like less. She poured tea from a small thermos, chamomile, by the scent, into 2 paper cups. "They don't serve this in the cafeteria," she said. "Too calm for students." I took the cup. "You bring your own piece." That earned a soft laugh. "Something like that." She looked down for a moment, then added, "I used to make it for my husband. He said it tasted like regret." The word hung there, regret. She didn't explain. I didn't ask. Instead, I told her something small, almost reflexively. My mom used to drink it too. She'd fall asleep halfway through grading papers. She taught literature at a community college before she got sick. That was the first time I'd mentioned her to anyone since she passed. Professor Vale's expression softened. "That must have been hard." "It's quieter now," I said. "Too quiet, sometimes." She didn't reply, just nodded slowly, her thumb tracing the rim of her cup. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, but not in a bad way. Like both of us were remembering someone we'd lost, and neither wanted to interrupt. I watched her hand still on the cup, the faint line where her wedding ring used to be. I hadn't noticed it was gone until then. When she finally spoke again, it was barely above a whisper. "You remind me of someone I used to be brave enough to talk to." I didn't know what to do with that, so I said the wrong thing. "And what happened?" She looked at me, steady, unflinching. "Life. It happened." A clock ticked somewhere near the back of the room. Outside, a car door slammed. Ordinary sounds, yet everything in me shifted. She gathered her papers, her composure returning like a mask being placed back on. "You should go," she said. "It's late." I stood, unsure whether to say goodbye or thank you or nothing at all. As I passed her desk, she reached out, not to stop me, not really, just to brush a piece of lint off my sleeve. Her fingers lingered an extra second too long. It was nothing. It meant everything. Later, walking home, I kept thinking, I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The following week, she stopped sitting on my desk. It shouldn't have mattered. But the space she used to claim, that quiet, 3-foot stretch between us, felt different now. Emptier. I told myself I was imagining it. She started keeping her distance, physically and otherwise. She talked to the whole class more, not to me. Asked for group discussions, assigned more readings. Everything louder, faster, less personal. But every now and then, I'd catch her looking, a flick of the eyes, quick, like a muscle memory she couldn't unlearn. That Thursday, I found her in the break room. Alone, pouring water into the electric kettle, eyes half closed, shoulders drawn. I hesitated at the doorway, unsure if I should say something or turn around. She saw me in the reflection of the microwave door. "You're everywhere lately," she said softly, not turning. "Coincidence," I said, even though it wasn't. She reached for the tea bag. "You want one?" I nodded. We stood there in silence, waiting for the water to boil. Steam filled the small room, making everything feel close. The hum of the kettle, the faint scent of paper and lemon soap. When she handed me the cup, our fingers brushed again. A repetition of something neither of us had learned to stop doing. "I heard you dropped another class," she said after a moment. "Yeah, didn't feel right." Her eyes lifted, sharp this time. "You can't orbit around one thing forever." I wasn't sure if she meant the class or her. Before I could respond, the door opened. Another professor, younger, smiling too brightly, stepped in. "Oh, Vale? You left your papers in the copier again." Professor Vale straightened instantly, taking the folder with practiced calm. "Thank you, Marcus." Her tone changed, lighter, professional. She didn't look at me once while the other teacher lingered, chatting about curriculum updates and student performance. When he finally left, the air between us felt different. Flattened. "I should go," I said quietly. "You should," she replied. But her voice cracked on the word should. The next day, she canceled class. A department meeting, the email said, but I knew it wasn't that. I walked past her office anyway. The light was on. Through the glass, I saw her sitting with her head in her hands, elbows on the desk, papers untouched. I stood there longer than I should have, long enough for her to sense movement and look up. Our eyes met through the narrow window. Neither of us moved. Then she stood and opened the door halfway. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Neither should you." Her lips parted like she might argue, but didn't. Instead, she took a slow breath, stepped aside, and let me in. The room was dim, the air still. Books piled along the wall, a faint smell of her tea again. I set down the notebook I'd been carrying. "You forgot to read this one." She took it, but her fingers trembled slightly. "You shouldn't keep giving me these." I don't know how to stop. Something flickered in her eyes then. Fear, maybe, or recognition. For a second, neither of us breathed. She took a half step closer, close enough for me to see the fine lines near her eyes, the pulse in her throat. Then she looked away. "Go home," she said softly. I should have. I almost did. But when she reached out to return my notebook, her fingers brushed my wrist, and neither of us pulled away. The distance between us shrank to nothing. Her breath caught. And then, a knock at the door. She flinched. I stepped back. A student's voice outside. "Professor? You left your phone in the classroom." She turned away, shoulders stiff, voice calm again. "Thank you. Leave it there." When the hallway went quiet again, she whispered, almost to herself, "This can't." I nodded. "I know." But my hand still burned where hers had been. And for the rest of the night, that almost moment replayed. Her voice, her nearness, like a heartbeat refusing to fade. It was the first warm afternoon in weeks. The air smelled like wet pavement and lilac from the trees that lined the back of campus. I found her sitting on one of the benches near the faculty lot, a thermos balanced between her hands. For a moment, I thought about turning around, but she saw me before I could. "Skipping class again?" she asked, her voice more tired than teasing. "Just waiting for someone to give me detention," I said. That almost got a smile. Almost. I sat beside her, leaving a careful stretch of space. The kind that looked polite but felt like restraint. We didn't speak for a while. Students passed by, laughing, loud, the world carrying on without us. She traced the rim of her thermos with one finger, lost in thought. "Finally," she said, "they offered me a position at the university in Seattle." "Oh," the word came out thinner than I meant. "That's great. It's temporary. Maybe a year." I nodded, staring ahead at the sidewalk, where sunlight caught in the cracks like gold dust. "You're taking it?" "I haven't decided." Silence again, the kind that hums. I wanted to say don't go. Instead, I said, "You've been distant." She blinked, startled by my bluntness. "I'm your professor," she said softly. "I should be." "That's not what I meant." "I know," she whispered. Her hand tightened around the thermos. For a second, her composure wavered. "I thought I could control this," she said. "Keep it harmless." But lately, she stopped, exhaled. "It's not harmless anymore." I looked at her then, really looked. The way the sunlight caught the edge of her hair, the faint tremor in her jaw as she tried to steady herself. "Do you regret it?" I asked. Her answer came slowly. "No. I regret how much I think about it." The sound of a lawn mower started somewhere across the quad, far enough away to make our quiet seem private. She turned toward me, eyes searching. "You're young," she said. "You'll move on. You'll write about this, maybe. Turn it into something cleaner than it was." I shook my head. "You don't get to decide that." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but no words came. I reached out, not to touch her, not exactly, just to rest my hand near hers on the bench, close enough for warmth to bridge the gap. She didn't move away. For a heartbeat, the world held still. The sound of the mower faded, the air thick with something neither of us could name. Her voice, when it came, was quieter than the wind. "If I asked you to forget this, would you?" I swallowed hard. "Would you?" She didn't answer, just looked at me, steady, unflinching, almost tender. The distance between us pulsed like a living thing. And in that suspended moment, between what we could say and what we shouldn't, I realized that every silence we'd shared had been leading here. She stood, slowly, thermos still in hand. "Go home," she said, the same words as before, but softer this time. Sadder. I stayed seated, watching her walk away, her figure dissolving into sunlight. And I couldn't tell if what lingered in the air was goodbye, or something that hadn't yet found the courage to end. She stopped coming to class. At first, there were substitute lecturers, rotating names, polite smiles, no explanations. Then an email from the department said Professor Vale was on personal leave. No date, no reason. The first week, I told myself it was temporary, that she'd walk back in one day with her thermos and calm voice and pretend nothing had changed. But the longer her absence stretched, the heavier the silence grew. I still went early every Tuesday, sat in the same seat by the window. The light hit differently now, colder somehow. 2 weeks in, I saw her. Not at school, but at the bookstore near the station. She was in the poetry section, holding a paperback with both hands. I almost called out to her, but something in her posture, the slope of her shoulders, the quiet stillness, made me stop. Before I could decide, a young woman walked up beside her. She looked maybe 20. Familiar somehow. Professor Vale smiled at her, soft, maternal, almost relieved. The girl said something I couldn't hear, and then they left together. I followed them outside with my eyes, watching the way the older woman adjusted the girl's scarf before stepping into the rain. Her daughter. I realized it then. And something inside me folded, not with jealousy, not exactly, but with understanding. The kind that hurts more. I didn't text her. I typed out a message. "I saw you today," but the words looked wrong on the screen. Too small for everything underneath. Instead, I left it unsent and deleted her contact. Or thought I did. The next day, a new email from her appeared in my inbox. Short. Formal. "I've taken the position in Seattle. Thank you for your work this term. I hope you continue writing. CV." That's all it said. No goodbye. No trace of the woman who had once said my name like it meant something private. I read it over and over until the words stopped meaning anything. Weeks blurred. Spring turned to early summer. The campus filled with new faces. I avoided the library now. Couldn't stand how her absence had rearranged the space. But one afternoon, I went in anyway. Habit, I guess. The desk she used to sit on during lectures was still there. Same faint ring from her coffee. Same uneven scratch near the corner where her pen had slipped once. I sat there until the lights dimmed, the custodian reminding me they were closing. On the walk home, I opened my phone again. Typed one more message. "You left your thermos." It wasn't true. The thermos was still on her bench by the faculty lot, where I'd found it a week after she left. Half full, forgotten, cold. My thumb hovered over send. But I didn't. I just watched the blinking cursor for a long time, waiting for it to decide for me. And when I finally locked the screen, it felt like letting something die quietly, not out of anger, but inevitability. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I saw her again almost 3 months later. It was late July, the kind of evening that hums with leftover heat. I was walking home from work when I passed the small cafe by the river. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of her, hair shorter now, wearing a light gray coat despite the warmth, a notebook open in front of her. She looked ordinary. Unreachable in that way ordinary things become once they stop belonging to you. I could have kept walking. Should have. But some quiet pull, habit, maybe, steered me inside. She noticed before I spoke. "You're late," she said, like I'd just arrived for a class that never ended. I didn't know I was expected. Her smile faltered, then settled into something gentler. Maybe I did. I sat across from her. The air between us was full of all the things we'd never said. The cafe was almost empty. The low murmur of a radio filled the gaps. "How's Seattle?" I asked. "Raining," she said. "Always raining." A pause. Then, I came back to clear out my office. So this was it. The real goodbye. I nodded, tracing a crack in the wooden table with my thumb. You could have told me. I didn't know how. She looked down. I thought distance would make it easier. Did it? Her eyes lifted to mine. No, for a long time, neither of us spoke. The waitress refilled her cup. Outside, a train passed, its low rumble stretching through the silence like a heartbeat. She broke first. You remind me of how I used to see the world, she said softly, before I learned to protect myself from it. I didn't know what to say. Everything I could have said would have sounded like a plea. So I asked, why me? Her lips curved, not quite a smile. Because you look at people like they might still surprise you. Something in my chest ached. Not sharp, just deep. Like a memory trying to breathe again. I reached for my cup, but my hand was unsteady. She noticed, and without thinking, placed hers over mine. Warm. Familiar. Still careful. I kept your thermos, I said quietly. I thought maybe you'd come back for it. Her eyes softened. I don't need it. I know. We sat like that, her hand over mine, both pretending it was a small thing. Then she pulled away first, slow but certain. You'll be fine, she said, voice steady now. You were always going to be. And you? I'll keep pretending I meant all my choices, she said, a hint of dry humor threading through the sadness. It made me laugh, quietly, almost against my will. She smiled too, the same half-smile from that first day. When I stood to leave, she didn't stop me, just looked up and said, okay. That was it. No promises, no dramatics. Just okay. And somehow it was enough. It's been a year. A whole cycle of mornings, deadlines, and small, unremarkable moments that added up to something I never thought I'd call peace. I still wake early, 8:47 a.m., without fail. The habit stuck. I make tea now instead of coffee. The bitterness feels too heavy most days. Sometimes I walk to the old bench by the faculty gardens, the one under the crooked oak. It's quieter now, no footsteps echoing behind me, no voice reminding me to slow down. Just the sound of wind and the occasional passing student. She stayed in Seattle longer than she planned. We wrote, sometimes, small messages, half sentences that said more than paragraphs ever could. Then, one afternoon in spring, she showed up again. No announcement, no build-up. Just appeared at the cafe by the river, sitting by the window with that same gray coat, reading something thick and serious. I stood in the doorway for a moment, unsure whether to interrupt the calm. But when she looked up and smiled, soft, knowing, as if no time had passed, I realized I didn't need to decide. My body already had. We didn't talk about the past much. There was no need. The silence between us had learned how to hold warmth instead of tension. Still tea? She asked that day. Mostly. Still too quiet for your own good? I smiled. Still overanalyzing everyone else. She laughed, the same low sound I remembered from long nights and harder conversations. It filled the room in a way nothing else could. Over time, she started teaching again. Guest lectures, nothing permanent. I helped her move boxes into her new office, where the sunlight cut clean lines across her desk. She brewed jasmine tea in a chipped mug while I stacked books she pretended not to miss. Some days we didn't say much. Other days, we shared stories about the lives we almost chose. She once told me, I think love feels less like falling now, more like remembering. I understood. It wasn't the kind of love people wrote about. There were no declarations, no vows. Just the quiet assurance that comes when two people finally stop running from what's already theirs. One evening, while walking back from the gardens, she slipped her hand into mine. Simple, unspoken, steady. No sparks, no music, just warmth. When we reached the cafe, she glanced at the clock through the window. 8:47, she said. You're still perfectly on time. I smiled, squeezing her hand once. Guess some habits are worth keeping. We sat down, ordered our usuals, tea for me, black coffee for her, and watched the river move slowly past the glass. For the first time, it didn't feel like something was ending. It just felt right. And when she leaned her head against my shoulder, I thought, maybe this is what extra credit really meant.